So welcome, everyone. My name is Johanna Siljakus. I work as a consultant for ADB's Transport Sector Office, Emerging Areas. We're really happy to have you join us for this online training workshop looking at business models for battery electric buses, which we are co-organizing with WRI India. And if we can, thank you. So in today's workshop, you'll learn about different business model modalities, including kind of the roles between public and private sectors. But we'll also hear from kind of very concrete examples from India, but also more globally, examples from Latin America and elsewhere in the world. The session has been catered for South Asian audiences in particular. However, the learnings that we'll gain from this workshop will surely be helpful throughout the Asia and the Pacific region. So we are happy to see and welcome participants from anywhere in this region and beyond. And the workshop is arranged under the umbrella of the e-mobility support and investment platform for Asia and the Pacific, which is a platform that aims to build capacity and support the scale-up of e-mobility in the region. This platform is led by ADB, the Asian Development Bank, and it forms part of a global initiative supported by the Global Environment Facility, the GEF, and UNEP as part of the Global Electric Mobility Program. We also have supporting partners, including Green Climate Fund, Republic of Korea, eAsia, and Knowledge Partnership Fund, and Japan's High-Level Technology Fund. And for everyone's information, we will record this session and it will be posted online afterwards. And if I can have the next slide, thank you. So before moving ahead with introducing our trainers for today and kicking off the workshop itself, I'd like to mention that we have 3 more online training workshops coming up during this week and next week. Registration is open for everyone. We will be checking the technical issues. In case there are any further technical issues, those will be solved definitely. I hope we don't encounter any more. But you should be able to register through the QR codes available on the screen now, and through the links that we'll be entering into the chat a bit later on. So we'll be having on Thursday this week, we'll be hearing about financing of e-mobility projects. So that's a very kind of a very focused topic on looking at different financing modalities, basically. So a bit linked also to today's topic. And the week after that, so next week, we'll have a workshop looking at e-mobility roadmap development with P-Manifold. And then the next week, if we can have the next slide, we'll have a topic on e-vessels. Christina, can you please take next slide? Thank you. So e-vessels, so these are light e-vessels we'll be discussing, mainly focusing on the Pacific Islands, but obviously this topic can also be very relevant for other countries as well. So that's on Wednesday next week. A bit earlier, the starting time is a bit earlier than the usual. Okay, so can we have the next slide, please? So we're also very excited to officially launch our website. So the e-mobility platform for Asia and the Pacific has been working on a knowledge sharing website for some while, and we're have finalized it or finished it, and it's available there through that link. Can hear an echo? Thank you. You can access the website through that link. We'll also put it in the chat, or there's a QR code. So it includes a lot of knowledge, our past webinars, upcoming events, different knowledge products, blogs, newsletters, as well as e-mobility country profiles that have been produced by the Asian Transport Observatory. So all kinds of information will be available there. Please do join or look at the website. And if you wish to collaborate through, for example, writing a blog post for our website, please do get in touch with us. We're happy to discuss that further. All right, so let's move forward to the house rules. Please stay muted unless asked to speak. We'll for questions and comments, you can use the comments box. So basically the chat box that you have available for you. The session will be divided into three kind of presentation sessions, so 20 minutes. And after each of those blocks, there will be time for discussion, so questions and comments. There will also be Menti polls, so you can to kind of break the ice a little bit, but please feel free to send questions, comments throughout the session, and we'll be looking at them always in between those 20 minutes presentation sessions. If there is time for discussion, you can also raise your hand to signal that you wish to speak. So that's in the case that we do have time to kind of further stay on to discuss different topics. We might be going a little bit over time since we started a bit late, but we'll try to keep this as concise as possible. And as mentioned, we'll be recording this meeting and posting it online. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, today's workshop is arranged in collaboration with WRI India, and we are really fortunate to have two excellent trainers from WRI India running today's workshop. So we have Avinash Dubedi, he's program head of transport with the Integrated Transport Program at WRI India. He leads various research and project initiatives on public transport and transport data analytics at the national and state levels. His areas of work includes public transport planning, e-bus planning, electric mobility, and transport data analytics. And he has over 15 years of experience in the transport planning domain. Avinash holds a master's degree in civil engineering from IIT Kanpur. And our second trainer, Chintan Daftardar, is program head of transport also at WRI India's Integrated Transport Program. Chintan works across various public transport initiatives with EV strategies, capacity building initiatives, transit policies and research, and he has worked in the field of transport planning since 2010, including contributing to several BRTS projects, to bus operations planning and bus procurement strategies. And he holds a master's in city planning from IIT Kharagpur. So yes, without further ado, and still once more apologies everyone for these technical issues that we encountered. I'm really glad that you were able to now finally log in, and all of us were able to kick off the meeting. So without further ado, let me hand over to Avinash and Chintan for kicking off the workshop. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Johanna, for the introduction. And I would also like to thank the organizing team for having WRI India as a partner for this session. May I request, Divya, if you could share your screen with the presentation? Perfect. Okay, thanks, Divya. Go to the next slide. So this is what the overall the agenda, or what we will try to capture in the next 1 hour 20 minutes. We'll start with providing a quick snapshot of the public bus system and the e-buses in India. Then we'll gradually move towards the different types of procurement models or the business models that has been adopted for the bus procurement, and specifically to the e-buses. What are the different procurement models in practice? What are the different sort of pros and cons of this? Then we'll deep dive into our experience with the demand aggregation that we started in 2021 and 22. Then the business models in terms of like how it is evolving over the period of time through demand aggregation and through this financial de-risking mechanism that has been announced late last year. So those we'll try to capture in what are the different types of business models in practice. Then we'll also look into the electrification of the private buses in India, even though the progress is very limited in this. So it is still at the initial stages, or I would say the nation stages. but however, we'll present it, and in terms of the way forward, like how it can be uh, uh, sort of accelerated in terms of the adoption of e-buses, even in the private bus sector. And then towards the end, we'll also look into the few of the global models that are in use in Latin America, in different global cities, to just see like what's happening globally in terms of the business models, what are the preferences for the e-buses, and what are the learnings from it. So gradually, so this is what the overall that we'll try to capture. As Johanna already pointed out, we'll try to make this session more engaging. So after every 20 minutes, we'll have some sort of a mentee or a discussion, mentee polls or discussions happening. So I would encourage the participants to feel free and sort of use chat box to point out any points, or if there are any questions, please do type in, and Chintan and I will try to sort of reply to that. If towards the end we get some time for the discussion, we'll definitely do it, or else whatever the questions are, we'll respond to it maybe at a later point of time via Johanna and the organizing team. So now moving ahead with the presentation, Divya, if it come. So in terms of the public transportation, overall, there are around 2.3 million buses, which caters to almost 400 million passengers or 400 million trips daily. Uh, 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 so it is like almost 25% of people in India uses buses for their sort of commute every day. In terms of the split between the private and the public buses, out of the 2.3 million buses, 150,000 is only the public buses, which is around 7 to 8% of the overall mix of fleet. Next slide, please. Now, if I talk about the number of buses or how it is spread between the urban areas, so out of the 150,000 public buses, around 48,000 are operating in an urban areas, uh, catering to almost 42 million trips every day. In terms of this availability or the bus supply, there is a benchmark or the service level benchmark which was developed by one of the ministries, which is like the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, in terms of to check like where do we stand in terms of bus supply depending on the city population size. So in terms of that, they have divided this into the four level of service 1 to 4, with 1 being the sort of an ideal scenario, or how much the buses should be. On the right hand side, if you see the map, most of the cities out of the 110 cities with a population of over 3 lakhs, the level of service that currently is mostly between 3 and 4, which clearly indicates that there is a huge deficit. So in terms of deficit, if I talk about like only the urban buses, there is around a deficit of almost 100 to 125,000 buses that should be operational in the urban areas. So that is the deficit in terms of the urban buses. Next slide, please. If I talk about the electrification or the electric bus sort of a scenario, we have almost 11,500 buses already registered. 21 to 22,000 are in different stages of procurement. 50,000 is what the committed under the National Electric Bus Program, which is the target to achieve the 50,000 in the next 5 years. It was announced in 2022. We'll look into this at a later point of the presentation as well. And in terms of ambition, the ambition is to achieve around almost 500 to 800,000 e-buses in next 10 years. The spread of the e-buses in different states is what is represented in the right hand side on the map. So if we see the Delhi is leading, and it is marginally followed by Maharashtra and Karnataka. So this is the status of like the electric buses in India so far. Next slide, please. In terms of different policy initiatives that has been adopted so far to enable this transition towards the electrification of public buses, it started with a national mission for electric mobility way back in 2011 and 13. At that point of time, different plans were developed. But in terms of the actual support or the first supportive scheme for the e-buses, where some sort of subsidy or support is provided, was announced in 2017 in the form of FAME 1. which intended to cater to almost 400 e-buses across 10 cities. And the subsidy levels are mentioned. It is followed by the FAME 2 in 2019, which intended to support almost 5,600 e-buses across 73 cities. Then later on in 2021, the demand aggregation or the aggregated procurement of buses happened of almost 5,500 buses. In the same year, there was another sort of supportive scheme, which is the production linked incentives for the manufacturers, just to promote the local manufacturing of EV in India. Next, please. Then, based on the success of the demand aggregation, the formulation of National Electric Bus Program with a target of achieving 50,000 e-buses by 2027. Another scheme which was announced in 2023 was PM E-Bus Seva scheme, which intended to support almost 10,000 e-buses, followed by PME Drive in September 2024, which intend to support almost 14,000 e-buses. Apart from this, PSM was also part of that, in which it's basically a financial de-risking mechanism. We'll cover all those details in the presentation later. So this is what about the policy initiative and the ambition. We'll gradually cover like what were the business model that was adopted in FAME 1, what changes or how it got evolved in FAME 2, followed it by PME Bus Seva. So all this we will cover. So this is what largely the growth of the e-buses in India looks like. If we see like in the last 5 years, we were able to achieve almost 79% year-on-year CAGR in terms of the e-bus registration. If I talk about the last year, out of the total bus sale, the penetration of the electric buses is almost around 3%. So that is where the current standing is. Next slide, please. So this is in terms of the snapshots. Now I'll talk about the different forms of business models that are already in use and how it got evolved for the e-buses. Next slide, please. So largely, if we look on the left-hand side where there is a public monopoly, so largely the business models will vary from public monopoly, where there is a complete sort of ownership of the public entity. There is no potential for competition as they are controlling everything. To the right, we have a highly deregulated market where there is a lot of competition. So the only way the government controls is the number of licenses that they are issuing. So the operators, once they get the license, they are free to operate it because there is no sort of routes on which they should be applying, or there are no service level obligations that they need to follow. So this is where the two extreme ends of the system is. One with no potential for competition, and at the other end we have a highly deregulated market where there is a lot of competition. In between comes the hybrid models. So in terms of the hybrid models, it starts with the passive franchisee. Under the passive franchisee, the difference is the licenses are issued for the specific routes. There are service obligations like which private operator needs to follow, but the level of enforcement is not that great. So it's like a lot of ambiguity. So that is where the passive franchisee comes in. Compared to this, the franchisee model, which is sort of well regulated. The licenses are issued for the specific routes or the area based. The service level agreements or the obligations are monitored by the public entity. So it's a bit of more well regulated as compared to the passive franchisee. And then it is about the proactive planning with service contracts. So here the public entity will do all sort of planning, like what should be the route hierarchy, what should be the route network looks like, how many buses to operate, at what time to operate. So all this exercise public entity will do, and then they will give out a service contracts to the private operators or the service providers. So this is largely the typologies of different business models for the bus systems. Next slide, please. Now we'll look into the different examples, few Indian cities and few global also, like in which direction, like how they are evolving. So if I start with the Bangalore, so it started like the complete public monopoly, and like it's gradually shifting towards the proactive planning with the service contracts. Keep on moving. This is the same for the Mumbai, Ahmedabad, and London also. It started with a complete sort of public monopolies, but now gradually it is drifting towards the proactive planning with the service contracts. And there is the public entity is ensuring that the entire network or the different modes of public transports are well integrated. So that sort of complete planning has been ensured. If I talk about the Latin cities, so Sao Paulo, they have started with the passive franchisees and now they are coming towards the well-regulated franchisees. Another example is of Indore, which is an Indian city. It started with a sort of a completely deregulated segment, and also now it is coming towards the proactive planning with service contracts. So if we see from this global Indian and the global examples, it is clearly in the like coming out that whichever way the cities have started now, they are gradually coming towards the proactive planning. Oops, sorry for that. Divya, I think I've stopped sharing the screen.
Something happened. It's saying that sharing is no longer allowed. So I'll try again. But
okay, Christina, could you please help?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sorry
I
for
yeah,
further technical issues. Okay.
there you go.
Thank you. So this is the status. Next slide, please. So now if we talk about the main service models that are sort of in practice in India, so largely it is between the insourcing and outsourcing. So insourcing is the one in which the public entity will take all the responsibility. They will own the fleet, they will operate the fleet, and they will also manage the ticket revenue part of it. Now, if I talk about the outsourcing, so largely there are these three sort of a model, which is like cost plus scheme, net cost model, and gross cost model. So largely what does the cost plus scheme entails is, under the cost plus scheme, private operators keep none of the fare box revenues. Their operating costs are reimbursed by the transport authority along with a management fee. Now, if I talk about the net cost model, so under the net cost models, operator to operate the bus services on predefined routes and areas, operator collects and retain the fare box revenue, and the transport authority provides some form of viability gap funding to the operator for viable operation if needed. Now coming to the gross cost model, under the gross cost model, operator operates the bus services on predefined routes and areas. Transport authority manages the fare collection activities. Amount as quoted by the operator is paid by the authority on account of both capex and opex requirement. So largely, this is what the three main models are. Mostly in practice is the net cost contract model and the gross cost contract. And the main difference between the net cost and the gross cost is the revenue or the demand risk. That is how it gets shared. So under the gross cost model, the authorities or the public entity takes up that demand risk. Under net cost contract, it lies with the private operators. Now, if I talk about the gross cost model, there could be a multiple variations, some GCC hybrid, wet lease, drive lease, but these are the three sort of main models. Like largely the private entity, the public entity will own and operate, will own, private entity will operate, and the ticketing revenue will be managed by government via in-house or through third parties. Under the wet lease model, the buses are owned and operated by service providers. Ticketing is managed by the government entity. So this is what the wet lease model is. Wet lease model is the one which is sort of widely adopted for e-buses so far in India. There is another variation which is of the GCC dry lease. So primarily, it has been explored by a couple of cities recently to address the resource constraint. Resource as in like the number of drivers that they already have in the system. Because initially, as we have seen, most of the public buses are operated in-house only. Like the public entity is the one who owns the assets as well as operates the assets. So there is this resource available. So now if we shift completely towards the sort of private operation, then the drivers, where to use them, what will happen. So to address this challenge, a dry lease model has been explored. Under this dry lease, it is expected that the private operator or OEM will sort of own, procure, and deploy the buses. In terms of only operating, the drivers will be provided by the public entity. And the ticketing, as under the GCC, it will be managed by the public entity. It has been tried, but with a very limited to no success. So that's the sort of a scenario as of now. Next slide, please. In terms of, I won't go into the much details of it. So largely in terms of what are the different activities or how the responsibility is shared under the gross cost contract and the net cost contract is presented over here. As pointed out earlier, the collection of revenue part is the primary difference between the GCC and the NCC model. Next slide, please. In terms of risk, as pointed out, demand risk is managed by the transport authority or the public entity in the gross cost contract. Under net cost contract, it is with the private operators. And in terms of technology risk, which is like the one of the main concerns when the journey towards the electrification started was public entities have very limited experience or the know-how about the electric buses in terms of how to maintain, how to sort of keep to maintain its upkeep. So therefore, this technology risk is one of the things that is very important in terms of the initial electrification stages. And as the OEMs or the manufacturers of the bus are in the good position to own up this risk, so therefore this technology risk has been transferred to the OEMs. This journey towards the electrification, even though initially when there was only ICE buses, the service provider could be operators. But in the initial phases, the learnings was the operators are also not in the position. So it is ensured that the OEMs do have stick in the contract, in the service contract, so that this technology risk part, they can own it up. So that's the largely about this contracts. Next slide, please. In terms of like the business models, the different business models, how they are, whether it is in-source, they are managed by public entity, or they are outsourced. What are the different activities or what are the different sort of responsibilities that they bundle together? So this chart presents largely with that. So with the FAME 1, it started with the outright purchase so that the public entity, everything is bundled together. Only the maintenance part was outsourced. Next, keep on pressing. So this is largely during the FAME 1 stage. Under the FAME 1, it's the public entity. They have an option whether to own and operate, so that it's outright purchase and in-house sort of operations. Largely, the maintenance part was outsourced, maintenance or combination of maintenance and operations. If I talk about the US experience, so they have unbundled. They have unbundled the energy part of it. So in here, the buses or the fleet will be owned by the public entity. Operations and maintenance, again, depending on the scenario. So there are two options. In one, in which only the maintenance will be outsourced. Another one is in which operation and maintenance both will be outsourced. But largely the energy component, which is like the battery, the upkeep of battery and the maintenance, it has been outsourced. So the energy component is also unbundled in this model. Now, if I talk about the China specific, again, the energy part is unbundled. On top of it, the ownership of the buses, it is with the lease holding company. So they are the ones who have assets on their book. They lease it out to the private operators who will eventually operate it. And for the sort of the energy requirement, there is an energy service providers. Here, the central government will provide the capex subsidy to OEM, and the local government takes care of the OPEX subsidy to private operators and energy service providers. Now, if we talk about the model which is currently in use in India, it is largely the GCC wet lease, where everything is bundled together, but everything has been outsourced completely. So the service provider is responsible for purchase, procurement, deployment, its maintenance, and its operation. So everything is outsourced, but it is bundled together. Next slide, please. So why gross cost models has been identified? Because it gives flexibility. Like OEMs do have an option in terms of if the service sort of parameters have been defined, they can choose between the wide range of product. They can design a product depending on the requirement. So that flexibility is there. Authorities do not have much experience anyways. So it should be outsourced, or it should be outsourced to the entity who is in a good position to take that responsibility and risk. Also, for the public entity, it avoids high upfront cost. That is also one of the main reasons for it. And considering all this, the GCC models is one of the preferred model for the e-bus procurement for the public buses so far. Next slide, please. So this model, it's like what's the different steps or what are the roles, what are the sequence of it? It's presented in this chart. So this GCC model is with the capex subsidy. So like the FAME to one, the learnings from the FAME one, where it was like uh, uh, there was an option for the public bus entity. They can go for the outright purchase and do the operations. Only maintenance is outsourced. But based on the learnings, it has been gradually decided that for the FAME 2, only service models will be considered. So that entire responsibility is on the service provider. So under this, whatever form of subsidies, how it is disbursed, what are the sequences of events. So if I talk about, it starts with like the floating of tender, agency has been identified, transit agency will identify the supplier. They undertake the procurement process as well. Once the sort of service provider is selected based on the competitive bidding, initially the 20% of the amount of the subsidy will be disbursed, and so on and so forth. So these are the largely the sequence of different activities that will be undertaken as part of the FAME 2. Next slide, please. So, as we've seen in the policy slides earlier, even though the FAME 2 was announced in 2019, till 2021, there was limited uptake. So multiple cities were going ahead with the tender for based on their requirement. But what are the learnings? Because the pace at which the procurement or the deployment was happening was not that great. So at that point of time, a lot of consultations were done by the stakeholders to understand like what are the challenges, and few of the challenges or the learnings are the variation in the lot size. Here it is like OEM, they have their point, like if you're giving me a tender for 50 buses or 100 buses, that's very low. We need a long-term visibility so that we can invest, and even we can understand like where the sort of different city or what's the policy alignment at a national and the state level. So this is one of the constraints that they have highlighted. The numbers are not that high or not that lucrative to make that transition. Also, the different cities came up with the different requirements, operational requirements. Few cities came with like they need to operate only 140 kilometers. Some cities came, they want to operate around 250 kilometers. So this also resulted in the in terms of the bus specifications, the battery sizing requirement, the product requirement, and then that entire process of homologation and the certification did take a lot of time. So this is also like one of the challenges that OEMs have raised. Like if it could be consistent or more or less similar, the number of product that is required might not be that high, which should be the ideal condition. Then in terms of the technical and the financial clauses, there are a lot of variations, like few cities requested for AC, non-AC. So those sort of variations were also there. And in terms of the contractual requirements on service level agreements, there was also a lot of variations, like there were few cities were offering the opportunity charging, few cities were not offering it. So it all resulted in the multiple sort of a product requirement, and also the credibility of different STUs or the different cities. So these were the main learnings. Whatever the tendering or the procurement happened during that period, it resulted in the price discovery between 0.77 to 1.17 per kilometer in terms of USD, which is relatively much higher than the prices of the ICE buses at that point of time. So the cities were evaluating their choices, like then why to shift to e-buses if there is no sort of cost competitiveness in there? So this all resulted. So all these challenges encourage the government to reevaluate the alternative options for boosting the e-bus adoption rate. So this is where it started. Next slide, please. So learnings from demand. I think the 20 minutes are done. So just to keep all engaged, I think I'll take a pause. We'll take a 5-minute sort of a mentee poll, or is there any point that we want to discuss? And then again in 5 minutes, we'll start from here.
Perfect. Thank you, Avinash. Are there any questions at this stage from the audience? Anything you want to ask or discuss in particular? It's very quiet.
We can
Should
do
we
the
do a
mentee
mentee
polls.
poll? But feel free to ask questions in the chat, through the chat. I hope you can access the chat. Actually, Christina, can we make sure that everyone? I think that should be.
Yes,
that
yes,
should not
yeah.
be an issue.
Everyone has an
perfect.
access.
Perfect. So let's do a mentee here in between, but feel free to send your question through, and we'll look into them. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I hope you're able to see the screen, and here's the QR code. So if you could maybe just scan this QR code with your mobile phones, and I hope it'll lead you to this page of the quiz that we've kind of tried to pull up for all of you to just kind of get out of the a lot of things that we've been talking about regarding bus contracting.
Okay, I think let's jump to the question. Then we can see like how many are.
So, yeah, you could also use this code to join in at menti.com in case you're not able to join in through the QR. And I can see 3 people who've joined over here. If I could get a few more confirmations, we'll start with the questions.
One question from my side. I see it tells me that either write your real name, a nickname, or take a suggested name, but there's nowhere to write. So is that on the next page?
Right.
Yes. Perfect. Now I was able to join.
Perfect. I'll wait a minute more, I guess, because I see only 9 players are ready as of yet. So you can just log in via menti.com and use the code 89486370. Yeah, I see a few more people joining.
Let's start, Divya.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. So this is the first question. What is the role of the OEMs in the life cycle of electric bus deployment under service-based models like the GCC, gross cost contract? So we would want you to choose one of the options here. The first being only manufacturing and delivering the buses. Second, supplying buses as well as charging infrastructure. Third, providing end-to-end solutions. Yeah. So all of you got it right. The answer is providing end-to-end solutions, manufacturing to operations. We'll go to the next question. Sorry. Yeah. Which of these strategies contributed to cost reduction in e-bus service procurement through India's centralized demand aggregation approach? So we have 4 options again over here. You can choose one of them who you feel, with the option that you feel would be the right answer. Be a little quick. There's a timer set. I think everyone responded. So the majority of us got it right. Bulk procurement combined with standardized specifications. Yeah. So this is the leaderboard. I see there are a lot of random names also. So it shows these are the results. Earthman is leading. I'll go to the third question. Which business models are Indian cities increasingly adopting for electric public bus deployment? So there are 4 options: NCC, outright purchase, GCC wet lease, and GCC dry lease. You have to select the one that you feel would be the right answer. Yeah, I guess most of you got it right. So it's GCC wet lease model.
Okay, Divya, I think we'll break.
Okay,
Continue.
yeah, sure.
Thanks everyone who all have
Thank you.
participated in this. I think that breaks the continuous theory part of it. And then again, we'll start with the presentation. Okay, so we have seen what were the challenges that has been encountered so far in the FAME 2, and what were the subsequent strategy that has been adopted to ensure that the electrification of public buses are happening at a desired pace. Next slide, please. So based on the consultations or the sort of viewpoints of the different stakeholders, few amendments were made in the FAME 2. So initially it was for the 73 cities, but now later on it was decided that let's focus on the top 9 cities in terms of population. They'll be only be getting this FAME 2 subsidy or the FAME 2 subsidy for the e-bus deployment. There was this mandate for the aggregated procurement, and the entity that has been shortlisted for this is CESL, subsidiary of an EESL, which sits under the umbrella of Ministry of Power. So CESL has been identified as a nodal agency for this entire demand aggregation process. Later on, the e-Sawari platform was launched, where like a lot of this consultation for the homogenization. So the 2 things that the demand aggregation trying to address is the bus specifications part of it and the contract specifications part of it. But different cities have different requirements. So how to sort of do this homogenization? So multiple consultations were held. Finally, the Grand Challenge was launched in 2021. Later on, the price discovery happened. So this is what the overall Grand Challenge process looks like. Next slide, please. So this is what the process followed. Like the cities will subscribe, then the aggregation and the homogenization step will happen, where the homogenization of specifications will be done. Then the tender will be rolled out. Bidders will participate, and then the bidders will be shortlisted. And then post the agreement signing or post the supply, the incentive dispersal will take place. So for this grand challenge, the process started in December and it ended in May with a price discovery. Next slide, please. During entire this, like the multiple round of consultations, like 50 plus consultations have been happened, closed door, open, one-on-one with different stakeholders. Who were the different stakeholders that were involved in this process is being listed over here. Next slide, please. So finally, out of the 9 eligible cities, 5 cities participated. So the India map on the right hand side shows the 5 cities who participated in this grand challenge agreement. It also presents like few of the standardized sort of parameters which has been adopted. What this grand challenge, entire this grand challenge process resulted in is a price discovery which is around 25% lower than their ICE counterparts. So it has been demonstrated that by sort of aggregating the demand, the cities are better off because they are getting much more competitive rates for the e-buses. Even if if the subsidies of the FAME 2s are considered, then almost it was like around 30% cheaper than the ICE counterparts. So that was the sort of the outcome of this grand challenge of 5,500 e-bus procurement process. Next slide, please. These were few of the standard parameters that were homogenized. So in terms of contract terms, where like the 12 years has been decided, what should be the annual assured kilometers, fleet availability. So all these parameters were homogenized as part of this grand challenge process. Next slide. So this is the chart. Here I would like to spend time. So here, like if we see right from the 2018 onwards, from FAME 1 to the early stages of the FAME 2, the cities were procuring the e-buses, but the rates that they were discovering, it was like almost above 75, maximum between 80 to 100 rupees per kilometer. This service rates were discovered, which was relatively higher than their ICE counterparts. The post-demand aggregation or the grand challenge tender, if we see on the right-hand side under the box, the rates were relatively much lower. So that is what the success of the grand challenge was. Based on this success, in 2022, the NEBP plan was launched. So as part of this NEBP, as I've pointed out earlier, the ambition was that like almost 50,000 buses will be sort of procured and deployed by 2027. These are the different sort of procurement after Grand Challenge, NEBP 1 tendering and procurement happen to the latest PME Bus Seva tendering. So if we see like under the demand aggregation, the rates that are discovered, these are relatively better than the single. So which is like cities are demonstrated that they are better off putting their demand into a larger bucket than tendering alone. So this was the impact of sort of demand aggregation. Next slide, please. Few key considerations. So even though like the demand aggregation appears to be the way forward, but there are certain things that needs to be ensured. So one of them being identifying the anchor agency who can do the procurement on behalf of multiple cities. Then as pointed out, homogenization of bus specification and contract condition is important. To have consensus, to come on the common grounds could be challenging. So that needs to be ensured. In terms of when we are increasing the bucket size, so the access to finance, so the small private operators or the small operators who wants to participate in this procurement exercise, they might not able to participate because of the financing requirement. And also because of the high size, there could be, which could ultimately result in low bidder participation. So these are few of the considerations for the demand aggregation. I think with the success of all this, the recent tenders, this has been sort of addressed. But yes, these could be the potential sort of consideration if any other new city or any other new country wants to try out with the demand aggregation. So these are the few considerations that they should account for while shifting towards the demand aggregation. Next slide, please. In terms of how it changed, so as we have seen the previous one, which was under the FAME 2 with a capex subsidy, So the Ministry of Heavy Industries, they were rolling out the subsidies. So largely it remains the same. Only the procurement process, which was undertaken by a different transit agency, the CESL or the anchor agency for the bulk procurement, took up that role. So on behalf of different or the behalf of multiple cities, CESL rolls out the tender, and other every activity or the responsibility matrix remains the same, and how the subsidy or the support, the national support has been dispersed out. So far what we have seen is, as part of FAME 1 and FAME 2, the subsidy is sort of capex subsidy, like in terms of procuring the buses. Next slide, please. This is this is the PM e-bus Seva model. So the only basic change between the earlier models and this is the shift towards the OPEX subsidy. So instead of CAPEX subsidy, now the subsidy will be provided for the operations, like throughout the life of the contract. So this is the basic change. If you look here, there is central ministry, which is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, who announced this scheme and who is managing this scheme. So on their behalf, CESL will do the procurement, and then it's between the cities and the service providers. They will get into an agreement, whatever the state contribution is there, whatever the central subsidy contribution is there, it will be paid on a monthly basis to the service provider. A common escrow account which is there will be provided. For this PM e-bus Seva scheme, even the PSM guarantee was there. I'll cover the details of the PSM in the subsequent slide, but it is like largely, it looks like this, like how the flow of money will happen, who will do what sort of things are here. Also, the learning from the FAME 1 and FAME 2, as I've pointed out, initially there was a technology risk component. So to address the technology risk component, it was decided that OEMs should be there, who should be taking up this technology risk part of it. With the 5 years of operations, and because of different reasons, there has been a few challenges that OEMs have listed out. One of them being being an OEM, their main role is to manufacture the bus. But now with this, for electric buses, what's happening is, even though OEMs are responsible for the operations, or they are sort of binded into an agreement for the 12 years period, which is not their main role. So, and they're largely their the asset book or the capex funding that they take, it's basically on their accounts. So which also limited their capability to participate in the multiple tenders. So this is one of the things. So now gradually under the PM e-bus Seva, another change that happened is, now instead of OEMs could be the part of consortiums, but their liability in terms of their stake in that consortium could be relaxed, or even the financiers or the leasing company can come in and they also be bid for this contracts, being a lead bidder. So that is also a change that happened over the years. And for the under the PM e-bus Seva scheme, even the financial players or infrastructure developers are allowed to participate in this contract process. Next slide, please. Now, talking about the financial de-risking, why? Next slide. So as I've pointed out, like these are the two main risks. Under that risk, what are the different components? So one is the business model risk, and another one is the asset risk. So far, in terms of the asset risk or the technology risk, OEMs has been identified, like they can take care of this asset risk. Under the business model risk, because GCC sort of was stable as in like there were experiences with the city before e-buses also, and with e-buses also. So GCC model to a large extent have addressed about this business model risk. The only risk that is still remaining is the customer risk. The customer risk is the one. So say for example, if service providers delivers the service, what if there is a default or there is a delay in the payment? So that risk still remains. So that is the largely one of the main risk that is still not addressed, or I would say not addressed so far, was this customer risk. So what all this resulted in the a low confidence of financing. So it resulted in high interest rates for the OEMs or the service providers or the consortium of them, high interest rate, low loan to value ratio, short tenors of the loan, larger collateral requirements. So all this resulted in the sort of higher rate discovery. Next slide, please. And why this is the risk, basically, the payment default or the payment delay risk is. If largely we look into the public bus operations, so in 2020, just before the COVID, the numbers are pre-COVID, so it is not having any impact of the COVID in this. It's like there is the 50% gap. Almost the losses were to the tune of 10,000 crores across different STUs. So there is a gap, like they do not sort of able to recover, uh, and then the support to the STUs are not institutionalized. So far what's happening is, whether at a state level or the ULB level, the gaps are budgeted sort of whatever the deficit is, but not, it is not institutionalized. So that also creates a big problem. So this potentially could result in the payment delays. But now, if you want to really attract the private sector finance or the private capital into this sector, this needs to be addressed. So far, what's happening is, whatever the financing or whatever the debt the OEM or the consortium is taking, it is a recourse-based corporate financing. So it is not on the project financing, but it is recourse-based. And also it is like the lending terms are not that lucrative. In terms of interest rate, in terms of tenure, it is not matching, and the lack of credit history. So these are the major problems why the private capital were not coming into this sector. So what is needed to address this challenge was, next slide, please. Some sort of a de-risking mechanism is needed, which is limiting the bankability of this e-bus procurement projects. So what basically is, it resulted into the higher rate discovery. So once the OEM or the consortium, they are not able to access the lucrative or the competitive financing terms, it will eventually result into the higher rate discovery. Now, to address this challenge, next slide, please. So this payment security mechanism, which was announced late last year, it addresses this specific issue of payment default or payment delay. So under this, what has been assured or what has been guaranteed is, at a national level only, a pool of fund will be created, which is like a payment security fund. And say, for example, if any city or any STUs, if they are not able to make the timely payment, it gives opportunity to the service provider to access this pool of fund, and they can get this fund released directly if there is a delay. So this provides, or this overcomes that sort of risk of payment delay and default, uh, which ultimately will give cushion to the financials. So they will feel more confident in investing in this sector, and more private capital could come into this sort of domain. So that's the largely about the payment security mechanism, and how it functions is, next slide, like how the process flows and everything happens is. So this is what the payment security fund has been created by a central government. At a state level or at the STU level, they can get into the agreement with the service providers. They can get the buses, operate the buses. However, if there is a case where there is a default or where there is a delay in the payment, it gives an opportunity to service provider. They can access this payment security fund, and they can get this sort of timely payment, which boosted the confidence of the lenders. And how the this payment security fund will be recouped, it will be recouped from the state budgets. So that is what the largely the mechanism of the payment security. This is the largely the framework of it, how it happens. Next slide, please. So this is like the payment security, as I've mentioned, late last year in September 2024, it was announced. The total amount budgeted for this is around 409 million USD, with an intent to support 38,000 e-buses till 29. So that was all about this payment security mechanism. And now the PM e-bus Seva scheme, which is currently in progress, all the procurement of the PM e-bus Seva scheme buses are sort of secured by this PSM mechanism. So this is largely about the public bus electrification of the public buses. Now, if I go to look into the electrification of the private buses, so where do we stand? What are the learnings of it? So these few of the things that I would like to present is this is what the private bus sector or the private bus ecosystem in India looks like. As I've pointed out, there are around 2.2 million buses, private buses. In terms of the ownership or in terms of the operation, 90% of the fleets they are owned and operated by the operators who has less than 5 buses, and only 1% of the operators operates more than 30 buses. So this clearly indicates that there is it's highly fragmented. The entire ecosystem is highly fragmented. And as the private operators do not have that scale, so that sort of financing would be a problem for them, because even though in the long run, or if you look from the overall TCO point of view, electric buses might be cheaper, but upfront there is a capex requirement. The capex requirement to sort of manage that capex requirement will be a challenge. So in terms of numbers, if I look, go to next slide. So if somewhere we are looking at around say 500,000 e-buses by 2035, so almost the financing requirement is to the tune of 600,000 crores. This entire slide is in terms of Indian rupees. And in terms of the funding for the private operators, largely the split between the debt and the equity is around 70 to 30 or 75-25. So this is what the requirement is are. And as we have seen, the small and medium sized operators currently lack the wherewithal to finance electrification. So this is becoming one of the challenges why the electrification of the private bus industries in India is not happening at that pace. So to overcome this challenge, what is needed at this point of time is different financing instruments are needed to solve for this financing challenges. It could range from, say, low retail loans, concessional loans, credit guarantees. So these are different mechanisms, but largely the point here is, next slide, please. Some form of support is needed initially till the time this sector doesn't, whatever the risks are, if it is not overcome, it remains in that stage. So one of the sort of solution or the sort of how to achieve the electrification of the private buses is, can we create some sort of a funding window or funding mechanism which could ease this access of debt finance, equity finance that private operators needs to put in, is needed largely till the time. So like different multilateral donors, private and public funds can help pool in this money and create this sort of funding window. So this proposed financing window should establish access to low cost patient equity capital that will propel the electrification of mid-size aggregators. So this is what the largely what is needed for this so far, like the learnings or the based on the consultation with different operators, lenders, that is what we have observed. Next slide, please. Beyond this, even though the electrification of the private industries is not at that great pace, but still there are examples. There are different models on which the private bus electrification has already happened. Few of the examples or few of the examples that I've listed here is the Green Cell Nugo model, Intercity Smart Bus, Flixbus. So largely it is like they are going for the asset light model. Asset light model is like some sort of a leasing which is available for them. where the financiers or the lenders can take up the financial aspects of it, and the operators can simply lease out the buses and operate it, and against which they can they can pay the lease amount on a monthly or on the quarterly or whatever the terms are. Next slide, please. Another example is of the Vertelo. So this Vertelo is the Macquarie Asset Management. They have launched this platform Vertelo for the new fleet. So Vertelo is basically they acts as an asset co. It is also backed by GCF. So here the lessor, it's like they will aggregate the demand, raise capital, and make bulk purchase of e-buses with benefit of scale and technical expertise. Lessee, on the other hand, will get into a long-term lease of the e-buses to small private bus operators against a fee. So these are a few of the examples. Like Vertelo recently, like they got into a long-term lease agreement with Chalo Mobility to supply 44 e-buses. Parallelly, Vertelo has also signed agreements with multiple OEMs for almost 2,000 electric buses in the next 3 to 5 years. So this is like a sort of an example of a leasing model where a financier or a lending institute can create this, a leasing platform for the smaller operators or the medium-sized operators to come in and operate the e-buses. Next slide, please. So this is what the if I talk about the electrification journey so far for India, it's look like. There are different pieces, there are different challenges. Gradually, we are evolving, we are addressing, and we are moving forward. So far, what has been achieved is like whatever is there in the green portion has been achieved. Like demand aggregation has clearly shown us the way to achieve the cost parity. In terms of financing, there are challenges like how can we ensure the institutionalization for the funding and financing of the STUs can happen. How to de-risk this. So there was an announcement of the PSM, so that de-risking has also happened. Then alternative business models like the financing and the leasing companies came in, how they allowed in the PM e-bus Seva, which is the public procurement, and also for the private bus electrification. Few of the things that are yet to be solved or resolved, or they are in the initial stages, are the correct form of tech adoption. So we have clearly seen that the bus discovery or where my bus is, it's still not that clear. So in a correct form, a correct way of technology adoptions, and then how to enable the flow of private capital into this sort of sector is important. How to address that needs to be done, and how we can create a marketplace of private operators. So as we have seen, like a lot of the private operators are they own less than 5 buses. So how to ensure that even the electrification of the small players happen? So how to create this marketplace? This is another sort of things that is needed. I think with this, I've covered so far for the India story for the electrification. Before jumping to the global scenarios or the different business models in practice globally, we'll cover. But I think this is a good time. We'll take another pause. If there are any questions or if there are any points that needs to be discussed, we can. Or else I will hand it over back to Johanna and Chintan. And Chintan will take us through the global scenarios.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Avinash. I think this was really, really informative. This part. I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment. Please do, you can raise your hands if you have any questions. I think we started 50 minutes late, right? Around that. So we would be running 50 minutes over time. So we now have 25 minutes left. So there is time for some questions or discussion if you have any, if you're wondering about anything, please feel free to come in. However, if there are no questions, we can either do a short menti or we can continue to kind of make up a little bit for the time that we lost at the late start. So those are the options.
I think we can jump to the presentation only because Menti
Yeah.
will take another 5 minutes, and by then we'll be at 2. So I think let's start.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, thank you. Over to you, Chintan.
Hello, hi everyone. Uh, so till now, Avinash had given you all a nice glimpse of what all happened in India, that the story which propelled the electric bus adoption, and we are more than 11,500 buses now. So this compelling story obviously will from standardization, homogenization through demand aggregation, and dealing with that financial and contractual risks might be very clear. But while we do understand this entire story, we also thought that let's give you a glimpse on what is happening across globe, for which our team, including Divya, Mohit, have worked on this research. So just a quick walkthrough of what is happening. uh, so London, we have always heard about the good practices, best practices in the bus service model. So more than a decade, London was more than a couple of decades. London was following the quality incentive contracts, which was ensuring that based on their route services, that route performance is provided by the operator, and people are getting that reliability from their services. Okay, so what they did was when they wanted to transition to the electric buses, they just tried to capitalize this current model of theirs, where the TfL had their subsidiary, London Bus Service Limited, which was a nodal agency again taken for the electric bus procurement. While they have to work with the operator, what they also found that operators will now going to face the two challenges. One is the high capex of the bus, that is they will be now depending on the financing companies to support the transition, and the energy component. So what they did was, instead of operator directly purchasing from the manufacturer, now operators were providing buses to the financing companies, or the banks were providing the finances to the operators, and they were then leasing it to the operator. So operator did not have that financial burden at the initial stage. And at the same time, what they also did, what the energy companies were asked to create a cohesive and interoperable charging infrastructure. Like, because they were having the route-based contract, so you can understand that multiple bus operators might be coming to a common points or common sections. Hence, you cannot give a dedicated or their own proprietary charging infrastructure. So they have to have an interoperable infrastructure. So they have to unbundle this, and then they created an interoperable infrastructure there. So we saw here how induction of a new technology, buses, the high cost of the buses, and the energy, they had to unbundle from the operator, and operator hence focused on delivering the services while distributing the cost of the buses over the longer period. Next, if we see, we will go to next city. Singapore, what they did, they were also following the bus contracting model. So they were also inspired to go towards the PPP model. But the limitation, obviously, their geography, because they cannot scale it up. They cannot have something like India or other countries, they cannot scale it up multiple times. So bus OEMs or operators will have that limitation. Government, being strong financially, they were ready to take that financial risk and the technology risk. And as they used to do so, they continued to have that, they created that infrastructure provision. So the LTA, which is leading the transport, they were acting as the network planner and the regulator while they do so. So they also tendered these packages. They were these packages, unlikely what was happening in London, that route-based contracts. Here they were bundling few routes as clusters, and they were just to operate these buses. Okay, so the tendering
Chintan,
process here,
sorry.
because the entire hello.
Sorry, Chintan, to interrupt. I think your connection is failing us a little bit, so we hear you a bit. It's cutting a little bit, so I wonder if maybe you should close the video for a while at least, if that might help.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay, that's so. So, because the government of Singapore was able to take that financial risk, entire burden from that to focus on what? Quality services and
Sorry, now we are losing you.
they
At least I cannot really hear you. Avinash, can you hear?
No, even I can't hear. Chintan, hello?
Yeah, no, I think we lost him. So yes, all the technical issues are are topping up for this session, I'm afraid.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, now you are.
Huh. Okay, okay. I will keep the camera on otherwise because I switched off the camera. I think also got muted. Okay. So was saying that Singapore was being the financially strong, the government there, the entire technology financial risk went away from the operator, and operator was able to focus on the service delivery, the quality of services, that maintaining the reliability of services, as well as the skilling of their professional services and the welfare of their staff. So that is what the Singapore did. If we go to the next city, coming from the Latin America, what Bogota did. Now, Bogota also had those challenges of fragmented operators and the aggregators being supporting them. Again, for them, the cost of buses was very high for the operators to take that challenge. So what they did was they said that fleet providers, because they are giving a new technology, operators are saying that the technology is new. We are not sure about how long the battery will last and it is very costly. Hence, let the fleet provider themselves take the risk for the fleet financing, fleet provision, and at least guarantee the or oversee the maintenance part of it. At the same time, operator will continue to operate and maintain the fleet as well as the related infrastructure. What they also did, now the energy part of it, what they did from the government to government entity, they asked the electric company, government electric company, to provide the charging infrastructure at the depots and the opportunity charging locations. So here what we are seeing that they are trying to unbundle what Avinash also told, the unbundling and unbundling framework. They said that different areas require different set of expertise, from the fleet provision to operation to energy, reliable energy provision. So they unbundled all these components and they were doing this contract. Initially, they unbundled and were trying to manage all these contracts. All of them were through the service level agreements, where they also had that flexibility to keep checks on their performances. What they also did was later at 21, they found that managing and coordinating was also becoming a challenge. So at the later stage, what they into 2021, they said, these are my fleet providers, these are my private bus operators. Now bring them together as a joint service provider, make an kind of an MOU or arrangement with them, so that the coordination of the government is minimized, and they are not blaming each other if quality of services are being impacted. So if they become a joint service provider, they will be able to deliver the service well. So they try to rearrange those management frameworks and created that joint service provider mechanism. And while they do so, they also said that we are going to guarantee that whatever are the debts of related to the financing of the buses and the guarantees of payments, that is will be taken by the government. Okay, and the contract period was given for 15 years to spread out that cost of operations, which will be on the monthly basis. Okay, so different concessions, contracts, and leasing came together to deliver this kind of a model and unbundled services and greater management there. Next, if we go, what we see in Mexico City, Avinash and I was also got a chance to experience that recently. While it is a GCC contract, I will just focus here on how the fund flow, how they gave importance to the fund flow to ensure that the transition happens more smoothly. So what they said, what they have two kinds of buses. One is the RTP buses, which are still the ICE buses. The metro buses, they have started converting into the electric buses. They have multiple operators there. What they do, whatever are the ticket collection from these metro bus services, including the BRT services, the trolley services, they have created a trust fund. So all the ticketing revenue, or whether they are the government subsidies, whatever it is, they will be pulled into one common fund whenever they are collected. Okay, but how it will flow? So from this fund, the first thing what they will ensure as a fund flow mechanism will be, buses are costly. They have been funded from the financiers. They require a direct, they are going to impact the banking industry and the debt mechanism. Hence, they have to be funded first. So their EMIs goes regularly. Second, whenever these buses, few of the route also crosses the toll. So those toll are also dependent on some other contracts from the other private entities of the highways. So they will be paying those contracts first because they have a commitment towards them also. Then, because the fare collection, there will be an entire ecosystem from digital to manual and the service sector there. So they have to be retained for a proper revenue management. Hence, that will come as a next phase. Then there will be payments done to all those operators and drivers. And only after that, the metro bus will get their due payments. If anything still remains, that becomes a profit or a bonus, and which is still retained in this fund for the future utility. So that is how they ensured that there is a confidence in the financiers that their payments will be there on time. They can, there is a less financial risk, and they can reduce the cost related to the interest from the bank loans. Okay, so that ensured the lower cost of the buses and more infusion of more finances into the system. We can go to the next model as well. If we go to further down to Latin America, the Santiago from Chile, what we see here, it's a more complex model. Till now, we saw that either in Singapore, like government was taking that lead of the fleet ownership, or like the bus OEMs were taking it. Here, that utility companies are the stronger financing companies in the ecosystem. Also, because they were going to get a guaranteed energy bills. So that becomes their linked business. So what they did was, from the manufacturer, which is currently a UID and couple of them there majorly, so they would be giving the buses to the utility company, and in turn utility company will be leasing the buses to the operator along with the charging ecosystem. The operator will collect the money. All those monies collected will be coming to the bank consortium. The payment for the electricity directly goes to the utility provider, anything which is related to the bus cost, that is the leasing of the bus or monthly payment toward the leasing of the bus, that was ensured through the bank, because a metro bus being a public transport service may fluctuate their finances or a revenue collection. To have a stable financial flow, this part of leasing of towards the buses, that cost was routed through this financial management system, okay, to the bank consortium, that was AFT. And the cities are parallelly there to give guarantees in case the banks and metro buses, Medbus are also paying. But if there is anything, national government will be paying the subsidy to the city authority, and city authority is giving the linked guarantees to the utility companies, so that they can with confidence own those buses, supply those buses, give the reliable electric power, and then the electric transitions happen more smoothly. So here you will see that there is a direct involvement of OEMs was reduced only up to the maintenance or cost as well as the technology risk, which they will give it to the utility company. Otherwise, it is a utility company who is taking the charge there. While you will see again, unbundling has happened at a multiple stakeholder level. If you go, we will go for the last one, which we all know. China was one of the cities there, Shenzhen, who transitioned to 100% of the fleet, and a big fleet of 16,000 a couple of years ago itself. So here the Shenzhen bus company, which is part of the government entity itself, they were running and operating the buses. It was their responsibility. Earlier, they used to directly procure the buses from the bus company, but now, because the electric buses has to be pushed, government of China was providing some production linked incentives and subsidies to the manufacturers there. But the electric buses had two components. You will see there is a bus cage, the bus body, and then there is a bus battery. Okay, so these two can be delinked. The batteries over the bus life cycle will have to be replaced couple of times. Okay, so in future, because the battery technology is changing, so what they did was they decoupled both of them, so that in future, whichever battery technology changes, they are not dependent on the primary battery service provider who was initially there. So after 5-6 years or in multiple phases, when you are replacing that battery after its lifetime, you can explore. So if you have an interoperable charging infrastructure and battery ecosystem, you can play with those ecosystem at later phases. Okay, so through these two, the bus company is now giving the buses to the financial leasing company and battery to the charging and maintenance provider. And now the Shenzhen bus company is taking these two components and then running these buses. Okay, so this is how the Chinese model work. But again, you are seeing here the bus, even now, till now we were looking the charging infrastructure, the financing in the other parts. What they also did was they unbundled the bus itself into bus and the battery. Okay, and this outsourced the charging infrastructure. So this is one more example how the finances can be rerouted, how the responsibilities, how the risks can be realigned to different stakeholders, and then you in your system, the way you used to operate, can operate buses. So if we go to the summary of this couple of cities, we saw that it is not specifically that one model fits all. Each city is trying to operate like London. They used to work on the route-based contracts. Their challenges were different. Okay, financing from their operator or the common ecosystem for charging for all. For Shenzhen, they wanted to unbundle the battery ecosystem because they were doing a lot of R&D on the batteries, and they wanted that flexibility to be inbuilt into their system. The Santiago one was looking, their their utility service provider as one of the leaders. Okay, so each one of them had their own strengths. Singapore had its strength with the government taking that risk. So you have to assess your strengths, your challenges, and then select a model. We have Avinash has given a very detailed assessment and the entire storyline of how over a decade India explored this model, and over the period how they have adopted it to our context. Okay, so it is not one size fits all. Again, you have to assess and accept, make a more acceptable framework for your cities. What we also learned, if we'll go to the last couple of slides, couple of points to remember and consider about the electric bus adoption. We saw that everyone is adopting the public-private partnership in urban bus operation. Okay, so there has to be a, you saw initially that some cities from monopoly or some cities from entire deregulated way, all are converging and looking forward for the public-private partnership. And that is a way when there is a multiple level of a risk, it is better that each one of them takes their own risk and they are linked to the performances and their payments are linked there, their incentives are linked there. Another important thing, the service contract, there may be different model of PPP. What we have seen, irrespectively, service contracts, that is helping scaling up the adoption because it is going to defer the cost of the capital cost and reduce the total cost of operation. Okay, so service contracts are coming up stronger in this phase. Another thing what we learned from the demand aggregation was that while we might not be having with the new technologies the economics of scale, that was an understanding, but there may be ways that if you have a government will have to lead that standardization and homogenization principles, whether it is comfortable and safe bus specifications to contract conditions which are not biased towards any stakeholders or any risk. Also, because there are electronically governed buses, they have to have a standard protocols because eventually you are going to have a common monitoring system. They have to integrate with your system. So the protocols have to be there. So even in the Indian contracts, now they are trying to build those protocols within the bus tender itself, so that in future that integration happens easy. So we are building those standard protocols for technology data transfers also. Financing models have to evolve based on the strengths of your regions, the production capacities, and the deployment capacities of the operating entities. So their financial roles also have to be reconsidered when you are making a consortium or the contractual conditions. And your interoperable chargers are going to give you an additional edge in reducing the cost of operations and the energy infrastructure. In the end, the last slide, I would just highlight, there are 6 key mantras or basic things we should keep in mind while we are procuring or contracting the buses. In the new domain, in the current era, we are not buying the product. We are buying the service. We are going with the service contracts. That should be our aim. We should be having a performance linked service contracts if we want to go for deployment of electric bus services at an accelerated pace and a quality of services. Second thing, unbundling. We know that now the risks are there more. It is better that each of the stakeholder takes their own risk. If we go towards unbundling, again, based on the equations and the laws in your region, that may be able to provide you a better roles and responsibility of each stakeholder in delivering the buses. We have to ensure the bankability, and hence the financial planning is important. We have to see in a long term that asset which I buy today has to last long, and hence the financial planning has to be stronger. We have to have a strategic planning of operations as well as infrastructure creation. Okay, so if we are putting that infrastructure, it has to be interoperable and strategically plan to have an efficient operations. We have to have that. Now also we know that this we are going to monitor sitting at our offices. We have to monitor those service contract and performance of the stakeholders. Okay, so if I know in future there will be an ITMS, or they have to link to the existing ITMS, or there will be changes in the technology which is coming, so there has to be a link or a flexibility already provided in your bus contracts as well. So when you build your contracts, try to link in what you expect in the entire life cycle, including the technology part. And above all, data is must. China also ensured that there is a data hub. They kept monitoring how the buses were performing. They did all the analytics on it, not only from the bus operations and efficiency, they found it good, but also they used it for their R&D purposes and mapping their strategic charging infrastructure and its strategy, as well as its battery manufacturing strategy. So data irrespectively is important. We have to focus on ensuring our data accuracy. So now just we'll be with the 6 mantras, I will be closing here. We all are here to also address a couple of questions if you want to go through, or still if some Mentimeters questions are there, we can play with that quiz. Yes, Johanna.
Thank you so much, Chintan. And to both of you for these excellent presentations. We are running a bit over time, but let's see if we have here some questions coming in. I think let's keep it quite short, but do feel free to share your questions. I see, is there a hand up actually? Yes, Moshi, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, it's been a really interesting presentation, especially looking at different business models across the globe. I have a couple of questions. I know we're running short of time, but let's see if we can do it very quickly. One is this demand aggregation and GCC. It's really good. I wanted to hear from you in terms of Asian context, because given GCC, there's a lot for the public agencies, public sector to play. They have to have that revenue risk taken care of. So what is the general perception away from India? Because India GCC has been quite successful, but elsewhere in the Asian context, what's your general experience for GCC, the perception of GCC for operators? And the second question is about the leasing model, whether it's asset for unbundled leasing. Each leasing model comes with those lease premium, right? So there is an extra cost to it. So how do they add up into your total cost of ownership? It does give really good opportunity to lower the upfront purchase cost, but at the end of the day, over the entire operation, operators or whoever taking the lease, they have to pay extra money for the lease premium. So how do we tackle that, and how do you address that?
Thanks, Moshi, for the question. I think I'll take up the second one first. So under the lease, as you have pointed out, yes, because of the inherent risk or the initially with the risk being higher, the premium associated with the same is also higher. So the chart that I have reflected, it's largely the concept around there is a requirement for some sort of a fund, or where it could be the philanthropic capital, it could be a sort of a more competitive sort of capital, which can result in lowering the premium amount. That could be the first one. Also, for addressing the risk, which is specifically around the technology risk, the demand risk, or whatever risk, some sort of de-risking mechanism, or any form of de-risking mechanism. So it could be first loss guarantee, second loss guarantee, or so on. So some form of de-risking mechanism can also help in reducing that risk premium in the initial stages. once the market or the ecosystem evolves and there is enough evidence of whatever the risk are, whether it is related to the demand or the payment or the technology, it's getting addressed, then a lot of private capital will flow into the ecosystem at a much competitive rate. So that risk premium associated with the leasing will come down eventually. So how to reduce it, that is where the initial period or that needs to be handled. I hope that was related to the second question.
Yes, thank you. That makes sense. And what about the GCC, the first one?
About GCC, Chintan, would you like to take that? Or should I go?
So, from Asian point of view, I mean, later on Avinash can also add. See, if we see Asian, South Asian market, except couple of them like Singapore, who are financially strength, the government has that financial strength to take that risk. All our countries here are having that challenges of fragmented operators who cannot have that financial appetite to have a procure a bus there. So we have to see their perspective as well as the government is not having a strength enough to procure the buses, okay, and operate it. So there has to be a mechanism where we have to see how we ensure the delivery of services to our citizen, that is government's context, and the operator to get those buses and deliver the services. Hence, that financial linkage, that finance, while we develop that GCC model, which was earlier also in the buses, ICE buses, have to be seen cohesive with how they are going to leverage the finances. What flexibility you are giving them to leverage the finances, which will reduce their cost of operation. And GCC model is eventually going to spread the cost of operations per kilometer over 15 years or 12 years, whatever the period different cities are adopting. So that is where we have to take then advantage of GCC in these countries to propel or push that electric bus. Like, I will just give a quick example before Avinash can add. India, if you see, today has a 50,000 electric buses, what we saw in initial slides, but our deficit was more. Now with the electric buses, more and more cities which were not even having the ICE buses, seeing that the electric buses are coming cheaper, number one, and their cost they don't have to pay right now. It can be deferred over 12 years with the GCC model. They are ready to accept the buses. So now with the electric bus and this kind of a business model, we are improving our our bus availability. That is an overall of bus availability, adding those electric bus fleet. So we are scaling up from 40,000 to 50,000, and then we are aiming for 100,000 plus buses soon.
Perfect. Thank you. And Avinash also added that it's 50,000 urban buses, not e-buses. Just as a note. All right. So I think we don't have further questions, and we are quite much over time. So let's end this session today. But thank you so much, Avinash, Chintan, and the whole WRI team for your really interesting and insightful workshop today. I enjoyed it at least and learned a lot during today. So thank you so much. And thank you all of you participants as well for joining us despite of the technical issues. I think we should not have issues in the next one. I think the problem should be solved. So I'm hoping for a smoother sessions for our next workshops. The next one being on Thursday, the 22nd of May on financing e-mobility project. So you can register in the link that I just have put into the chat for everyone.
So before we close, thanks, Johanna. Thanks, Johanna, for this.
Yes.
It was a pleasure.
No, thank you.
Collaborate.
Thank you. It was
Thank
really a
you. Thank
pleasure
you.
from our side as well. And let's stay in touch then. And thanks everyone, all of you, and we'll be sharing the recording as well as soon as it's uploaded. So thanks everyone, and have a good rest of the day.